one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, it's not every day we have somewhat of a full house, so welcome. Item A, roll call. Let the record reflect all 5 planning commissioners are present. Item B, minutes. B1, approval of minutes of the regular planning commission meeting of April 23, 2024. I will need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
And I'll second.
Okay, let the record reflect. A motion by Commissioner Bogusich, a second by Commissioner Catancho. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
I was here. I was not here.
Okay. So the motion carries with 3 yeses, 2 abstentions. Okay, item C, written communications.
Sorry, no communications tonight.
Thank you. Item D, oral communications. Members of the public are invited to address the Planning Commission on any item that's not listed on tonight's agenda. These are limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Is there anyone that would like to speak on an item that is not on tonight's agenda? Okay. Seeing not, we'll move on to the public hearings. Item E1, public hearing to consider APP C 2024-001, an appeal to the Community Development Director's approval of DR 2022-008 and MUP 2022-022, a design review and minor use permit for the exterior facade improvements, addition of a new cash and pickup window, modification of the existing drive-through, addition of a new second drive-through, and associated on-site improvements for McDonald's located at 35192 Newark Boulevard. This is APN 92A-720-10. The subject site is Zone CC, Community Commercial, and has a general plan land use designation of Community Commercial.
Sorry about that. We're just trying to get the PowerPoint up. All right.
There you go.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairperson and Commissioners. My name is Joseph Blapp. I'm the Associate Planner. This item is an appeal to the Community Development Director's approval of a design review and minor use permit for the McDonald's improvement project located at 35192 Newark Boulevard. The appeal hearing was continued from the April 23rd Planning Commission meeting. The applicant for the McDonald's project is Robert Priest from Design UA Inc., and the property owner is McDonald's LLC. Sorry, I'm just having issues trying to move my notes. All right, sorry about that. The property owner for McDonald's is McDonald's USA LLC. The appellant is Maurice Ladreche, who is the property owner of 35156 Newark Boulevard. So for my presentation, I will go over the summary of events, the project background and overview, the appeal process, the California Environmental Quality Act, short is CEQA, exemption, staff recommendation, and going over any questions you may have. So on October 20th, 2022, the applicant and property owner of the McDonald's project submitted their application for a design review for the new building improvements and on-site improvements and a minor use permit for the drive-through improvements. On March 13th, 2024, the Community Development Director approved a design review and minor use permit for the project and issued the notice of action. And throughout my presentation, I'm going to refer to the Community Development Director just as director. The notice of action was filed with the city clerk and was mailed to the applicant and members of the city council, planning commission, and property owners within a 400-foot radius of the project site. The procedure for appealing the director's decision was also included in the notice of action. The decision of the director may be appealed to the planning commission by filing a written appeal with the planning division within 14 calendar days of the date which the action was taken. The appeal shall identify the decision being appealed and shall clearly and concisely state the reasons for the appeal. On March 27, 2024, the appellant submitted a timely appeal of the director's approval of the project to the planning division. The appeal is based on the adequacy of the notice, building improvements, drive-through improvements, on-site improvements, and the findings. So the McDonald's site is approximately 40,300 square feet and is part of the Rosemont Square Shopping Center. The site is zoned CC, Community Commercial, and has a general plan land use designation of Community Commercial as well. The site consists of the existing McDonald's building, a single drive-through, trash enclosure, parking area, landscape areas, and hardscape areas. Historically, the current drive-through layout has had issues with the queuing lane being insufficient, which creates a backup of vehicles. Also, the site has had ponding issues that affected the parking lot area. The project consists of new building improvements, drive-through improvements, and on-site improvements to the existing McDonald's site. Some of the proposed improvements include a new 47-square-foot payment window area and a new 67-square-foot pickup window area that would be added to the existing building. An interior remodel of the ground floor and basement floor, exterior facade improvements, change in roof structure from the existing mansard roof design to a new flat roof design. There will be an increase in height of the existing building from 16 feet to 18 feet 9.5 inches, which is an increase of 2 feet 9.5 inches. There will be modification to the existing drive-through and addition of a new second drive-through lane. And there will be installation of new landscape areas, bioretention areas, and directional signage. The proposed improvements would provide an upgrade to the building and site and maximize efficiency of processing customer orders at the drive-through. So as mentioned earlier, the director approved the design review and minor use permit for the project and issued a notice of action on March 13th. As part of the review and approval process, the director has evaluated the project to ensure that it satisfies the design review criteria and that it meets all the following minor use permit findings. The findings and conditions of approval were provided for the project and were included in the notice of action. Now, on March 27th, the planning division has received an appeal to the director's approval of the project. The appellant is appealing the decision by the director to the planning commission. So when reviewing any decision on appeal, the appeal body, in this case the planning commission, shall use the same standards for decision-making required for the original decision. The planning commission may adopt the same decision and findings as were originally approved and also may request or require changes to the application as a condition of approval. The appellant has provided their reasons for the appeal, which is included in the staff report. Also, staff has provided response to each of the reason for the appeal, which is also included in the staff report. For the next few slides, I'll just provide a brief summary of each of the reason and follow up with the reason with the staff responses. So the first reason is regarding noticing. The appellant stated that the notice of action prepared pursuant to Newark Municipal Code Section 17.31.080B is incomplete. The notice relies on Exhibit C to provide the project description and plans for the proposed project. Without Exhibit C, it is virtually impossible to assess whether or not the proposed project meets the required minor use permit findings pursuant to Section 17.35.060. Before I go on with staff response, I just want to clarify that Exhibit C is part of the notice of action and is titled the project plans and description. It does consist of the project narrative, the project plans, and the drive-through queuing analysis. So in response to the first reason, staff have followed the requirements as outlined in Section 17.31.080B for preparing and issuing the notice of action for the project. The director issued the notice of action for the project on March 13th. The notice of action included a project description section, described the action taken from the director, listed out the findings that were the basis for the decision, which is indicated in Exhibit A of the notice of action. It also included the conditions of approval, which is outlined in Exhibit B of the notice of action, and included the procedure for appealing the director's decision. The notice of action was filed with the city clerk and was mailed to the applicant, the mayor of city council, planning commission, and property owners within a 400-foot radius of the site. Although the notice of action that was mailed to the surrounding property owners did not include Exhibit C, a notice to neighbors cover sheet was provided. And the notice to neighbors cover sheet did include information that if anybody had any questions regarding the project, or if they would like to review the project plans, that they could contact us. Us meaning the plan division. When someone asks to review the project plans, it would also include the review of the project narrative and drive-through queuing analysis if requested. So overall, the notice of action was completed per code, and the project has demonstrated that it meets the required design review criteria and minor use permit findings. So for the second reason, it's regarding the building improvements. The appellant mentioned that the project description section of the notice of action indicates that the height of the building would increase to a height of 18 feet 9.5 inches. But there's no further detail provided as to resiting the building or expanding its dimension on the parcel. A substantial increase in the height of the building and the possible resiting of the building will have substantial detrimental effects to the visual impression of the overall shopping center and its viewing and sight lines from Newark Boulevard, essentially screening off all the retail locations behind the McDonald's site. The current structure was built with a functioning basement to allow operations with the building at its lower height, thereby preserving viewing and sight lines from Newark Boulevard to the main retail parcels behind the McDonald's building. The appellant did ask a question, what factors are different which would now allow for the proposed increase in the height and possible resiting of the structure? So in response to this, staff wants to note that the project does not include a resiting of the existing building. So in front of you, here's the comparison of the existing and new first floor plan. The existing first floor plan shows the outline of the existing building with the shaded areas to be removed. The new first floor plan shows the outline of the existing building, but with the new additions added in the shaded areas. The project description in the notice of action indicated that there would be a new payment window area addition and a new pickup window addition to the existing building. In most cases, it's not common for staff to include the dimensions of the building in the notice of action. However, we usually include square footage information. In front of you is a comparison of the existing and new basement floor plan. So over here, not much has changed for the basement except for the interior remodel improvements. So to further clarify on the heights, the height of the existing building would increase from 16 feet to 18 feet 9.5 inches. And this is measured from grade to the top of the roof parapet. And again, the increase of the height would be 2 feet 9.5 inches. In the CC zoning district, the maximum height requirement is 100 feet. The proposed height of the existing building would be well below the maximum height requirement. Therefore, the project would demonstrate compliance with the height standards. Overall, staff feels that the notice of action for the project clearly outline the building improvements. For the third reason, it's regarding the drive-through improvements, and the appellant stated that there is no way to adequately assess the drive-through improvements without understanding the detail of the proposed work. So in response to this, staff mentioned that the project description in the notice of action included a paragraph on the drive-through improvements. Furthermore, since the minor use permit is for the drive-through improvements, the minor use permit findings explains how the drive-through improvement meets all of the required findings. So overall, staff believes that the notice of action for the project clearly outlined the drive-through improvements. As I stated earlier, the notice of neighbors cover sheet was included, and it did mention to contact the planning division if they want to view the project plans. And viewing the project plans would also include viewing the drive-through queuing analysis. The fourth reason is regarding on-site improvements. The appellant said the notice indicates that some of the existing parking spaces would be removed. There is no way to assess the traffic safety, pedestrian safety, density, and traffic flow implications without further detail. Furthermore, there is no indication that these factors have been adequately considered in evaluating the removal of existing parking spaces. So in response to this, staff wants to note that the project has been reviewed by all and approved by all city departments, which includes the planning division, building inspection division, engineering division, Alameda Fire Department, and police department. So the site currently has a total of 34 on-site parking spaces. The project requires a minimum of 24 parking spaces. There will be a total of 7 existing parking spaces that would be removed, and this is due to the new bioretention areas, landscape areas, accessibility requirements, and changing the angle of parking space in certain areas of the parking lot. The project would provide a total of 27 parking spaces, which is more than the minimum required. A parking study was not warranted to evaluate the traffic safety, pedestrian safety, density, and traffic flow implications. In addition, the project is not subject to on-site loading requirements. However, the drive-through queuing analysis did include an analysis of truck deliveries and stated that deliveries are not expected to conflict with the existing parking demand. The fifth reason is regarding the findings for design review, and the appellant mentioned that in finding A of the design review criteria, there is no reference to the substantial increase in height of the building or re-siding of the building and its impact on the shopping center and other retail parcels. The proposed project appears to be much more extensive than the description in Exhibit A, given the substantial increase to the building height. This would appear not to be a remodel of aesthetics and functions, but a complete reconstruction of the entire structure. In finding B of the design review criteria, no mention is made of the increased building height or possible re-siding of the structure as it relates to Newark Boulevard. So in response to this, staff wanted to mention again that the project does not include a re-siding of the existing building. The project description and notice of action did indicate that the height of the building would increase. Although the response to finding A and B of the design review criteria did not reference the increase in height, one could argue that the height could be part of the exterior facade improvements. Additionally, finding A and B continues to reference the proposed project or overall design, which one could argue that is referring to the full scope of the project. Overall, staff feels that finding A and B, as well as all the other findings for the design review criteria, has been made. This is the last reason, and the last reason is regarding the minor use permit findings, specifically findings C, F, and G. The appellant mentioned that there's no reference to the building height and possible building reciting. The drive-through queuing analysis was not attached to the notice. Therefore, the merits and supporting materials of it cannot be analyzed. It's unclear if the study provided for an increase in vehicle traffic, which would be expected in a business which is investing substantial capital in its structure to, one, would reasonably conclude attract more customers and therefore traffic. It is unclear whether the queuing line would back up into lanes of ingress and egress in and out of the center in general or be contained on the project parcel. The project parcel is adjacent to the main access lanes to the shopping center as a whole. Any blockage of those lanes would more likely have substantial detrimental effects to the operations of the center, the reasonable expectations of the other property owners, the safety of the community, and access of fire, police, and other emergency service to the center. So in response to this, staff wants to note that the main review for the minor use permit is for the drive-through improvements. The subject site is continuing to accommodate the existing restaurant use with a drive-through, but with upgraded improvements. Additionally, finding C of the minor use permit findings mentioned that the drive-through queuing analysis indicated that the project would help potential bottleneck issues at the order board, as well as reduce the service time at the drive-through as orders can be processed at a more efficient rate. And once again, as I mentioned earlier, the notice to neighbors cover sheet mentioned a contact. If anyone requests to review the plans, we would also show the drive-through queuing analysis if it's requested. So overall, finding C, F, and G, as well as all the other findings for the minor use permit has been made. So as for CEQA, the project is categorically exempt from CEQA as per CEQA guidelines section 15301, class 1, which applies to existing facilities, and per CEQA guidelines 15303, class 3, which applies to new construction and conversion of small structures. The project consists of improvements to the existing facilities, which would qualify for the CEQA categorical exemption. So staff requests that the Planning Commission review the appeal of the director's approval of the project and recommends the following. Adopt the draft resolution denying the appeal and approving the design review, DR 2022-008, and minor use permit, MUP 2022-022, for the new building improvements, drive-through improvements, and on-site improvements for McDonald's at 35192 Newark Boulevard, based on the findings provided in attachment 1 draft resolution. So that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions and further discuss the details of the overall project as well as the appeal. I do want to let you know that the McDonald's project applicant and property owners are available, as well as the appellant and the representatives for this meeting. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Before we open the public hearing, I'll bring it back to the commission. Are there any questions for staff or the presentation?
Just clarifying that it is in its same footprint. The footprint is not changing. It's not getting more area. It's in the same.
Yeah, it's majority is in the same footprint. There's going to be a small pop out, and this is for the addition of the new pickup window and payment window.
Right, but it's not going beyond where their parking lot already was, right?
It won't encroach into the parking areas,
Yeah.
but it would go a little beyond the existing footprint.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay. We'll go ahead and open it for the public hearing. For staff, I guess question for staff here. Do we want to call up the appellant first? Is it preference to call up the applicant?
So the applicant first and then the appellant.
Good evening, Commission. My name is.
You're just going to go there. If you could please state your name and address clearly for the recorder. Thank you.
My name is Robert Priest, representing Design UA Inc. Address is 153 East City Place Drive, Santa Ana, California, 92705. Thank you, staff, for getting us really to this point. It's been from the first, basically, application to that. Joseph and myself probably have worked longer than we thought to take on this one, but I appreciate staff. We're getting to this point. And then again, thank you, Commission, for hearing us tonight. Overall, myself, I'm here. McDonald's representatives are here. The operators that run that store, as well as the construction team, is also available in person as well as Zoom. So any questions operationally, feel free to ask us. And then overall, just touching base, obviously, Joseph represented the project very well, anything we're doing. The biggest thing for us is really taking a building that's about to outlive its lifespan, investing major kind of renovation into that to get it up to standards that both our customers need today, as well as the operations side and getting the infrastructure in that building that we need so we can meet basically the needs of our customer, the city, what you guys require, as well as getting the building up to current building codes, state, local, municipal codes, and all those things. So that's where we landed today. So feel free, any questions. I'm here, and as well as the McDonald's team. So thank you very much.
Any questions? I do have a question, actually. As it relates to the design, I mean, is this consistent with other kind of upgrades you're making to McDonald's structures that go through their typical lifespan? Is there anything out of the ordinary with it, or is this consistent with, we're driving down the highway or within any municipality in the Bay Area comparable?
Yeah, it's very consistent with what we've been doing. McDonald's started a major reinvestment probably in 2017, 2018, just into the brand, the operators, as well as McDonald's corporate on the construction side, just to bring new life into our buildings that have really come to their end. So whether it be technology that we're implementing, whether it's the way we process food and do what our customers expect inside, the interior environments for our customers that they're using there, all those pieces, as far as the image and the brand and what they're doing, both from a food standpoint, an expectation standpoint, a visual standpoint. So all those things are really rolled in. So, and you've probably seen it throughout the Bay Area in the stores that we've done. We've been doing them for a long time. So they are very similar, and that's intentional. It's really the brand identity and trying to maintain that, much like our buildings in the 50s and 60s were with the red roofs. So trying to kind of make that new step forward into the next direction.
Thank you. About how long does construction take?
Typical construction is around 4 to 5 months. I can let the construction team nail that
just
down
in
a little
general.
more, but in general, it tends to be about 4 to 5 months.
Will McDonald's be closed during that time?
This one, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And lastly, do you agree to the conditions of approval?
Yes.
Thank you.
Perfect. Any other ones? Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Priest. Okay, with the appellant.
Good evening, Chair Aguilar, members of the Planning Commission, staff. My name is Len Rifkind Law and Mediation PC. And I understand I'm supposed to say my address too, is that right? 1010 B Street, Suite 200, San Rafael, California, 94901. First thing I want to say is that we're not on appeal questioning the notice, that the notice is adequate for that was stated. So I understand that was in the appeal that was done by, prepared before I was involved with this matter. I also want to thank the applicant and McDonald's, and I understand this has been a process for a while, in that the footprint of the building has remained effectively in place. I heard Commissioner, I won't try your last name, but you were asking if the footprint had changed or gotten larger. I see in reading the plans, it's approximately 114 square feet, 47 for one pop-out and 67 square feet for another pop-out. What you're going to hear from me, what our big concern about, is sight lines from Newark Boulevard, public driving along the street there or walking along. Hopefully we have people walking and biking. But whatever they're doing is they're going along Newark Boulevard. We want them to be able to see the Rosemont Square Shopping Center. That's the big deal. And so Our concern, and I'll go into the first point, is that the purpose of design review is to make sure that the development is compatible with both existing and potential development. So at this shopping center that Mr. Ledrec, Maurice Ledrec, who's the owner of the Rosemont Square Shopping Center, he has an existing shopping center there, and you may, if you've not been there, you may have noticed that there's an adjacent vacant parcel that, in all the years he's owned it, has not been developed. But hopefully it will be developed. One day you will have a good enterprise, a nice economic opportunity for the city there. And so that is directly behind the McDonald's. So in there, when you increase the height from its existing 16 feet to 18 feet, 9.5 inches, or 2 feet, 9.5 inches, almost 3 feet, it does have some impact on the sight lines that the public will see, not only of the shopping center building, but also of the adjacent parcel. And so I had been in touch with counsel for McDonald's over the last couple of days, and he explained to me, after speaking with the construction team, and I understand they're all here and they can answer the question far better than I can, but the reason for the increase in height, I was told, was to address HVAC, mechanical equipment, and the like that had to go on the roof. And I understand that the city of Newark has a municipal code requirement that you need to have a parapet or screening. You don't want to be looking at the equipment on the roof, so therefore that was the requirement of the height increase. And my client would like that to be, the questions to be asked, is there feasibly, is there a construction method where you don't have to make all the mechanical equipment as high, so you need almost 3 feet of additional space? Because that's one of the main driving issues of this appeal, is how can we keep this building as much as possible of the same dimensions? And so certainly mechanical equipment and requirements change over the decades, and and then so way over my pay grade why it needs to be taller or bigger. But I would like it if the commission would ask that question of construction experts, why it has to be like that. So I think I've covered the height issue. I did note in your municipal code that exceptions can be made or granted by the director or presumably the commission where screening is infeasible due to health, safety, or utility requirements. So I think you do have discretion on your commission to either not have as much screening or some other potential design that would lower the height of what we're talking about. All right, I've killed that. The next issue is there's a number of new boards as part of the program that's going to occur. And so as I read through the plans, there's 2 of all of this, because now we have 2 lanes for the drive-through, 2 single-arm gateways that are almost 11 feet tall, 2 pre-sale boards, to an order here canopy, a menu board. And so all those boards, I understand you need signage to direct people where to go, how to order, all the things. It's all part of McDonald's. What I care about, and what Mr. Ledrec cares about, is that the signs and all this signage and all these boards are oriented in such a way that they minimize the impact of the sight lines from Newark Boulevard towards the shopping center and the vacant line. Okay. Trash enclosure. I read in the staff report that it's more or less in the same place, but it sticks off onto the opposite side of the drive-through. I'm sorry, I'm directionally challenged if that's west or east of the building. In any event, I'm hoping that the trash enclosure, again, is of approximately the same size and it's not going to be higher. I did read that it's going to be trellised and try to be screened with plantings. I think that's all great. It's the height that is my concern. Signage. Our concern with signage is I saw the sign program. It looks lovely. I'm sure it's fine. We no longer have as I was a kid, we had the big golden arches on the side. I understand we have a whole different thing, and that's great. Our concern is just that the amount of lumens, the lighting, or all of that, that it complies with your signage program. It says under sections D and F of your design review findings that you have to make, they require that the lighting be consistent with the character of the area, is a finding that you have to make. So I'm hopeful that in your discussions and deliberations, you'll decide or make sure that there's conditions of approval, that the lighting is consistent with lighting that other signage is in the area. And now I'd like to address the second big issue that we're having is with the drive-through. And let me explain what that is. Again, I'm a lawyer. I don't know anything about traffic analysis and traffic engineering. Those people are all much smarter than I am. But I just was reading it, and I went and I looked at the site today. And so we're adding a second drive-through lane, which presumably seems to make sense. Okay, 2 lanes, you can handle more cars. But the problem that I perceive, just from a common sense standpoint, is the 2 cars still have to merge into 1 lane to get to the pay window and the pickup window. So it's like a bottleneck on a freeway. You know, if you have so many lanes on the freeway and then you lose a lane or something, it always causes traffic to slow down. So I don't know why that same principle wouldn't apply here. I'm not understanding. What I understand that's happening is it will enable more customers that arrive to give their orders sooner, but I'm not sure, because we go from 2 lanes to 1 for the pickup, that they can pick up their food any quicker. And it's just a common sense argument that I'm trying to understand. And I was reading through the various analysis. By the way, the analysis was done by the company Kimley
Horn.
Yeah, Kimley Horn, thank you, which is a first-rate, first-class company that designs all kinds of things and around I'm sure nation, maybe internationally. But my point being simply is it was an in-house job that was done. And in my experience, sometimes when you're counting cars and all that, you might want a peer review analysis, because when I was reading the numbers, it said, okay, you have 250 feet of lane, and the highest count of cars was 12. So 12 times a 20-foot car is 240 feet. 12 times 2240, and you only have 250 feet of lane. Most cars, I mean, want to have a little bit of space before them and after them. People aren't 1 inch from each other's bumpers. Hopefully, they're driving safely or queuing safely, and there's a few feet. So 12 times 4 to 6 feet of space per car. If it was 6 feet times 12 cars, that's 72 feet, plus the 240 that the 12 cars will take up. 240 plus 76 is over 300, and we only have 250 feet of lane. So my point being, as a lawyer not understanding this whole process, I'm just saying, is this really going to work? Because the goal of the drive-through is to avoid the queuing into the aisles and the other parking spaces. And because the parking spaces are reducing from 34 to 27, I would think that would encourage more drive-through because there's less on-site parking. So you're more likely, if you can't find the parking, that you're going to use the drive-through. So what I'm asking the commission to do on the minor use permit is I'm questioning whether you can make the findings for the design as it is, or perhaps that you ask the applicant to really crunch their numbers, because as I read them as a layperson, I'm not sure I understand that. And let's see, the last thing that I want to add, and thank you for giving me the time. Everyone's being very gracious and patient. I'm used to being told to sit down quickly. One of the last findings that you need to make under the use permit, so what I was talking about, that was subsection C of 1735.060, is going to work properly. And then the last thing is under G of 1735.060, the second finding that you have to make. It says, quote, the site is physically suitable for the type, density, intensity of the use being proposed. Just like, is this going to work? So we've got 2 bump outs of 114 square feet, a new drive-through, reduced 7 parking spaces, new trash enclosure, new landscaping, new biotension, new hardscape. Is the whole thing going to work on that? I'm just asking that question. Lastly, I was reading through the conditions of approval, and I saw that it said that the delivery truck for the supplies is referenced in the Kimley Horn traffic study or queuing study. And I just thought you should have it express, it should be written out in your condition of approval where everyone can find it. And I read in there, I said, it looks like it's Wednesdays and Sundays from 5 a.m. for 45 minutes. I just think that should be an express condition of approval of when the deliveries are to occur. And then the very last point that I want to make is there are some CC&Rs, conditions, covenants, and restrictions that are private that apply at the shopping center that, of course, this commission doesn't enforce private CC&Rs. And I just want to reserve for the record that Mr. Ladresse reserves any and all rights that he may have under the CC&Rs, separate and distinct from the municipal code. And I'm happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Thank you, Mr. Ripkind. Any questions?
Just a clarification. So I know you said you just got on board kind of late in the process here. You were not involved in writing the original appeal?
No, sir.
Okay, so there's a whole lot of material in here related to that appeal that you're asking this commission to basically override a staff recommendation for denial. And it's just a concern of mine that just tonight, we're hearing that you're basically backing off on all of these concerns that were written out in the notice of action. Am I understanding you correctly? You are no longer opposing the notice of action?
I think the notice of action wasn't perfect, but, you know, it's, I think, enough due process. The whole point is due process.
Correct.
Notice and opportunity to be heard. And I think it was good enough. And so I don't want to spend time on an issue I don't want to ask this commission to spend time on something. I want to focus on what I think the real issues are. And the real issues for us are the height of the building and the second drive-through lane and whether it'll work. Those are really what I'm concerned about.
And frankly, in going through this, if you cut through all of this stuff, that's really what I saw it as, is that really was what the applicant's concern was.
Yes, sir.
Sightlines.
That's it.
And a lot of this stuff here was, frankly, I didn't think it was applicable, frankly. So you've answered my question, which is you are basically withdrawing any of the concerns regarding the notice of action that was in your appeal.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to make a comment. I understand what you're saying, how if there's 2 lanes, you're thinking it's more traffic, and how's that gonna work? I don't know if you've ever seen it, because you don't live around here, but like when the drive-through has busy times, and when it's really busy, the line goes way out. So if you just imagine there's 2 lanes, so now all the cars are in there, so they're not sticking out. And then it would just be a turn process. Like, instead of the 1 lane that's going way out and blocking stuff, you have 2, and then, okay, my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn.
I understand, and that
Right.
perfectly makes sense, and that people will then further queue, as you just explained.
Right.
But what happened, it's still a bottleneck, it's still going to slow.
But it won't be sticking out and, and blocking anything. And what they do, like all pickup windows do, if there's some issue with your order, they go, oh, just go park over there and we'll bring it.
I understand. I suppose, though, that, the queuing study, was done, I noticed in the summer, July, whether you have different patterns during the school year as opposed during the summer. I would suggest, I think there's more traffic, not in the summer, but during the regular times that people are living normal schedules when the kids are in school. And so I would suggest that whether or not 9 or 10 or 11 was the top number I think I saw in the queuing, whether that's accurate because it's summer is the first question. The second question is for McDonald's sake and the owner's sake of the franchisee. I hope they're wildly successful. I hope they have lots of business there. But that's going to mean even more cars coming. And so, look, I simply am asking this commission to ask hard questions to make sure, is this really the best design and will it work? As a condition of approval, I saw that, if we have a queuing problem, you can have a hearing on a use permit revocation and all that. That's the last thing in the world anybody wants. Those are ugly hearings. We want to do the best design now on the front end, make sure that it's working. So I would suggest a condition of approval that says, like, thou shalt not be allowed to have any queuing that sticks out a certain way. That's like a big deal. So whether you can have the manager of the store that's monitoring that, practically say, well, you don't get to stick out here. You have to go park and wait until, it lightens up or something. And how do you enforce that and all of that? But if the issue is the extra queuing, I'm just not sure that it's ready for prime time. That's all. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to address the Planning Commission on item E1? Okay. Seeing now, we'll close public hearing. Bring it back to Planning Commission for any further questions or comments.
A couple of questions and comments.
Please.
First of all, to address the question on the queuing, McDonald's has competitors such as Chick-fil-A and In-N-Out Burger. Anybody that's been to those, the setup in those locally, I'm talking about Fremont, Union City, San Leandro, they all have gone to the double order windows because it does reduce and again, I'm not an expert on traffic queuing, but as was mentioned, a common sense approach is you can shorten your queuing lines by doubling those queuing lines. And yes, while you still have the one point of ordering and one point of picking up, it seems to me that in that particular site, and we're all familiar with, I think, that McDonald's, there has been a problem with cars backing all the way up almost to sometimes the drive aisle where people are coming in. And this would appear to reduce that possibility of occurring. So again, not a traffic expert, but just common sense, and then the competitors that probably have the same issues have addressed that by the double queuing. So I think that would work. Signage and light splash, trash enclosure, the order boards, screening process, I think they're all legitimate concerns. I think that the designer has addressed those, and I think staff does a very good job of looking at those things and wants to make sure there's not issues in the future. And I agree, the last thing you want to do is put a condition of approval in here, then have to have the applicant come back and explain why something's not working right. So there is a certain amount of trust that I have with staff and their ability to review those things and make a finding that's accurate. And then my last comment or question really is, has staff received any other comments or concerns from any of the other property owners or business owners within that Rosemont site?
No, we have not received.
None?
No.
Okay. To address the point of, because I think it really comes down to the sightline issue, the extra 2 feet 9 inches from Newark Boulevard, and we're all familiar with the empty building behind the McDonald's store. It used to be a Mi Pueblo. It's now been empty for a long time. Is the 2.5 or 2 feet 9 inches, in staff's opinion, going to have a detrimental impact, a site impact from Newark Boulevard to that building and the empty parcel next to it?
So for the sightlines, it's not a requirement of the code. So it's not something that we are looking at. So in terms of the standards that our engineers and our planners have reviewed the project, it meets the height requirements, and that's what we focused on. So I don't want to give you an answer or an opinion based on something that we didn't analyze for because it wasn't a requirement.
There could have been a 100-foot building based on the height requirements
could have
in
been,
that zoning district.
and we would have evaluated that at the time. But yes, essentially that's a standard that is the limit of what a building would be here.
Okay, so the comment in the appeal that said, the applicant, this was number 2, they believe that this will have a substantial detrimental effect to the visual impression of the overall shopping center. That means the overall shopping center and its viewing and sight lines from Newark Boulevard. So what we're really talking about is the sight lines of Mr. Ladresh's property, not the entire shopping area?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, those are the only questions that I have.
Just a comment, when Mi Pueblo was there, and prior to that, when Lucky was there, it's a much broader length, and so that stands out. So if another place moves in there, I don't think it's gonna be hindered by the McDonald's because it's so much wider. Just an opinion.
I had a comment. So I was just thinking about the queuing process and the questioning about having the 2 lanes. And also common sense wise, when we think though about even the grocery store, I think most of us have been to one. Often if there's this really long line that goes all the way into the aisles, then they do open up a second teller. And I realize that at the end of the day, maybe it will bottleneck out the door, but at least for the time being, there's nobody in the lines blocking the aisles. And so that's part of, I think, if we think about it, that's similar to the situation that we're having here, is that because the lines are so long that it's blocking people from getting in and out of their own parking spaces or being attracted to come. But if people saw that there's more opportunities they could get their food, then perhaps they would continue to go into these lines. So that's one thing I was just thinking about the queuing. I was also thinking a little bit about the empty parcel of land that's nearby, and so I just had a question about that regarding the fact that this does meet the height requirements. How close are we within the height requirements? Are we so like directly on the height requirement, or is there a particular requirement that we're looking at?
The height for the zoning district
Right.
is actually 100 feet.
Okay, so it's the 100 feet that we were talking about. So when
This
we're
is well below.
Right.
So this is extremely well below. Maybe we were also used to it being extremely well below to begin with. So to consider moving it, it's still within the height requirement. And so I think that's something that I appreciate that staff has pointed out, as well as Mr. Becker as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. A couple items that the appellant brought up that I wanted to clarify with staff. And I'll kind of run through them. I know a few of these already been answered, but from what I heard from Mr. Ripkind was a couple of the items that he wanted to address were obviously minimizing the sightline, having trash enclosures that were properly enclosed and that were compatible with the surrounding buildings, but also being cognizant of the height of the trash enclosures, signage, having that comply, also lighting. You know, I did a quick, just reviewing the conditions of approval. It appears all of them have been addressed in the conditions in Exhibit B. For instance, item N hits the trash enclosure, item K, lighting. All that being said, is the application, is it compliant with our design review standards? Is there anything out of compliance?
Nothing's out of compliance. I mean, the project demonstrates that it meets the required findings as well as the criteria for the design review, especially meeting the code requirements.
Sure. And then obviously what's been addressed is the height, understanding that that appears to be in conformance. Are all other items that the applicant put forth, is everything in conformance with our zoning and general plan land use designation?
Correct. Everything's in conformance. I do want to note that there is one condition as regards to just the short-term bicycle parking requirements. This is something I just conditioned that we can take a look at the building permit stage. It just seemed minor enough, but other than that, everything else would comply.
Okay. I mean, for me, when I look at these, we're looking at whether a project is in conformance. That's what's in the code, what's codified. It's very clear the project is in conformance. We'd have a much more difficult time arguing the alternative and that it's not. So as I'm reviewing this, I do respect the fact that the appellant has come up and shared their reasons. I think they are legitimate in terms of, I understand your concern. They feel like items that are more geared towards our zoning ordinance, and not so much towards this application. So I would advise and welcome the appellant to come and meet with staff and talk about our zoning ordinance that we have for this location, our community commercial, and talk about some of these height standards that we have. Because as of right now, it's in our code, 100 feet is high, but we are obviously well below that with the, I think the 18.925 or 18.9 and a half. Any other questions for staff tonight? If not, we will need a motion for this item.
I have a comment.
Please.
Yes, I'd just like to make a comment. One of the things we do being on the planning commission, we do like to look at the design of the buildings. And I've always had a particular interest in how trash enclosures look. And we want to make sure we have the best looking trash enclosures, because over the years, we've had properties that don't have enclosed trash enclosure. And this is a applicant that is McDonald's Corporation. It's not like Joe's drive-through or something that has never built a building before. I know there's a building similar to this over on Fremont Boulevard near Maury. I go to that, it has a double drive-through, and it's quite orderly, seems to work out just fine. And so I'm just saying this is McDonald's. They've done these things before, and it seems to work in other places. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Fitz.
Mr. Chair, and there is nothing, regardless of what the commission decides tonight, there's nothing that prevents the applicant from still having communication and discussions with Mr. Lodresh or his representatives.
Is that the case, staff? Yeah,
Okay.
I believe so.
On that note, I would make the motion to adopt the denial resolution.
I would second it.
Okay, so just to confirm, before we call a vote, we are confirming the action here with staff. So we're making a motion to confirm the denial, but approve the initial design review, minor use permit.
That's correct. It's to deny the appeal and approve the design review and the minor use permit for the project with the findings and make the findings as set forth.
It can be done with one motion, though, I think.
Yes, it can,
Oh, okay.
it can. I'm just making sure that we have that correct for the record. Okay, let the record reflect that we have two motions, a motion from Commissioner Becker, a second from Commissioner Bogusich. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Let the record reflect, the motion moves forward unanimously. Thank you, everyone, for your input tonight.
And Chair, just before we move on, just want to note for the record, decisions of the Planning Commission can be appealed to the City Council within 14 days of the date the action is taken, and those appeals should be submitted to the City Clerk.
Okay. Item F, staff reports. Item F1, adopt a resolution approving a 2-year extension of the approval of vesting tentative map, tract 8559, for the FMC Willow and Grand Park project at 8787 Enterprise Drive. APNs 537-0852-001-08, 537-0852-002-009, and 092-0100-005. The project is exempt from further environmental review pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act Guidelines Section 15061B3.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Carmelissa Lopez, Senior Planner with the Community Development Department. Thank you for your time this evening, and hopefully this is a little shorter than the first one. The item that I'm presenting this evening is a two-year extension request of the approval of vesting tentative map Tract 8559 submitted by Lennar Corporation. Lennar is the developer of the FMC Willow and Grand Park project, which is a mixed-use development approved by the City Council on September 22, 2022. The project will include 279 attached townhomes, a community building, a mixed-use building with 91 affordable units and ground floor retail, 1 acre set aside for a future transit station, and revisions to the boundaries of the proposed Grand Park, which is a 5 acre public park that was approved as part of the Harbor Point project, an adjacent residential development approved in 2019. In addition to the vesting tentative map, the entitlements approved for the project include a general plan and specific plan amendment, design review, a minor use permit, density bonus, park agreement amendment, alternative means of compliance to payment of the housing impact fees, and an addendum to the Dumbarton Transit-Oriented Development Specific Plan Environmental Impact Report. The approved site plan for the project is included as attachment A in the staff report. This extension request for the vesting tentative map is being presented to the Planning Commission today due to amendments to the subdivision ordinance approved in October 2023. The amendments included changing the limit on extensions of approved tentative maps from up to 6 years to up to 2 years, as well as changing the review authority for time extensions of tentative maps to the Planning Commission. As for the other entitlements, with the exception of the general plan and specific plan amendments, will also expire in 2 years, but they will require review and approval by the Community Development Director, which will occur after this meeting. The general plan and specific plan amendments were legislative actions, so they did amend the city zoning map and general plan map, and they do not expire. As for the request before you today, the applicant is requesting an extension because additional time is needed to complete the processing of the project's improvement plans and final map. The applicant has encountered unforeseen delays, including a title dispute affecting the portion of a portion of the project site, as well as a dispute regarding claim of purported rights to discharge water in a watercourse or other proper drainage facilities over a portion of the project site. However, since the entitlements were approved, the applicant has made significant progress in their preparation and processing of the development plans for the project. Some that I wanted to mention today was submitting the improvement plans and final map to the city for review, as well as submitting the affordable housing building plans, which are also under review by the city. As for the Grand Park plans, those are also, the conceptual design of those, of the Grand Park is also almost complete. The applicant has been working diligently with the city staff, and they are expected to prepare the construction documents shortly. And based on the information provided in the staff report and presented this evening, staff requests that the Planning Commission approve by resolution a 2-year extension of the approval of the vesting tentative map, Track 8559, for the FMC Willow and Grand Park project. If the Planning Commission approves the vesting tentative map this evening, the new expiration date will be September 22nd, 2026. That concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions. The applicant would also like to say a few words and can also answer any questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmelissa. Before we call the applicant, any questions? It's not a public hearing, right? So we're not running necessarily a public hearing process.
That's correct. Members of the public still need an opportunity to comment.
Of course. Yeah, if the applicant would like to come up, state your name and address clearly for the recorder.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Don Barnett. I'm here on behalf of Lennar Homes. Also tonight, Ed Walsh from Lennar Homes is here, and our Land Use Counsel, Christian Sebrian from Cox Castle. Wanted to start by thanking staff for their help and guidance on this. Carmelissa did a great job on the presentation, so I don't need to add to that. Just wanted to mention that except for this issue that came up, we were making good progress. We would have recorded a map this year, so we wouldn't have needed this extension. But anyway, the good news is we're working on this issue. We're optimistic it's going to be resolved soon, and we can keep processing the entitlements. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Any estimate or guesstimate on when this project might move forward?
We're hopeful that we can start construction this year, as soon as the next couple months. We were close to being able to start construction before this issue came up. And so we're hoping in the next couple months we can start grading. And then that will continue on to home building and probably in about 2026. We're also hoping that we can start the Grand Park as early as 2025. We're working with the staff on the plans on those, and we're very anxious to get those going.
Thank you.
Regarding the construction for the project, does that include the affordable housing component as well?
It does, yes. The developer of that, Lennar will be providing a completed building pad for it.
Okay.
And then they'll start construction as soon as that pad is ready to go.
Excellent.
And I know they're working on their plans with the city now as well.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Glad to see it's still moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we do need a motion, though, to approve. Okay. So if we, any other questions for staff, planning commission? If not, we do need a motion.
Motion to approve the 2-year extension?
We have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, let the record reflect, Commissioner Fitz has made a motion, Commissioner Bogasich has second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Let the record reflect, the motion carries. Thank you. Item G, commission matters. Item G1, report on city council actions.
Thank you, Stephen Turner, Community Development Director. No direct actions to report out this evening. However, I did want to mention that members of the City Council, as well as members of the Planning Commission, attended the Eden Housing groundbreaking ceremony for the Timber Senior Affordable Housing Project on Timber Street near Central. It was an event put on by Eden Housing, very appropriate in terms of the timing in that it's Affordable Housing Month, and they are celebrating a number of projects that Eden is kicking off around the Bay Area, but in particular, they really put on a very good event to describe the project as well as all of the funding partners that contribute to the project, and namely, of course, the City of Newark, but also other funding sources, including the county and other private investors into the project. And so it was very good to hear about Eden's mission and this particular project. And drove by the site today, and construction is already continuing on that. So we're very happy to have kicked it off and broke ground, and look forward to new affordable housing, hopefully within 2 years on that particular site. So nothing else to report this evening.
Thank you. Okay, item H, planning commissioner comments. Mr. Becker.
Nothing this evening.
I just have a comment. I did attend the groundbreaking ceremony over at Eden Housing, and it's amazing. That is a 0.99 acre parcel, almost an acre, and they're putting 79 units on it. That is 79 units of affordable housing that we didn't have before, and it was an industrial use before. So it's, I think our plan is working in that corridor there with the timber housing and the new Robeson homes. That is really changing the area. And what I like about it too, this new one, is right next to the shopping center too. So it's a good fit, but it's amazing how much you can put on an acre. That's all I have.
It is dense, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it a 3-story or 5-story?
It's 4-story, is that correct?
5,
Is it
4
5?
and 5, I think, in the brochure.
Yes, there's a portion of it that's 5.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Mr. Catacho?
Yes, I was also able to attend the Eden Housing for the groundbreaking ceremony, and I thought it was really wonderful too that everyone from the community was also able to be there to come together. But I think was also really telling how many seniors are in our community and how we need to continue to reach out to the seniors to make sure that everyone's always included in activities. And so when we were there, they were explaining different ways that they're intending to keep seniors included in the community. So I appreciate that.
Fantastic. Commissioner Bogasich.
No comments.
While we're talking about that corridor, I mean, obviously the housing has been nice to see because that's what we planned it for. What's always stood out, or one of the things that's always stood out to me, is just the infrastructure improvements. You know, having the center median there, sidewalks. Years and years ago, it was just 4 lanes and flying through, no stoplights,
RV park.
RV park, no sidewalks. So that's one of the things that really stands out to me, kind of having the center median with the landscaping. It's very neat seeing that come to fruition. Thank you, staff, for everything tonight regarding both items. I know the first one was a challenge in working through, so thank you for all of your hard work. That concludes tonight's meeting.
Okay, another good.